All right, good morning. You probably can't hear it, but it is a windy, rainy, cold day here this Saturday morning. It is blowing like crazy out there. Hopefully you can't hear it, but all right, so let's get into it. Last weekend put in a solid day on this thing and left the shop a mess, but we'll do a quick review of where we're at. Got these lower links mocked up and tacked in place. Got these mounts tacked in place. This morning I am going to address the fact that the angle on these link brackets is just a little bit off. I'm considering either changing the angle of these brackets or moving them outward a little bit at the chassis side. What I most likely will do is change the angle of this inside bracket just a little bit, take a little bit off of the tube side so that it's very slightly kicked, but it bothers me, so I'm gonna kick it back this way just a little bit so it's parallel with the link. Got these upper mounts tacked in place on the axle side. I come back in here and took a second look, and I was kind of thinking these are a little bit too high. I could drop these down a little bit, and the reason why I was thinking they're a little bit too high is because that's going to affect bump. What I mean by it's going to affect bump is those upper links that are going to be shooting through that window right there on that S-bend in the frame. Those upper links, you can only go as high as the frame cross tubes will allow. So there'll be a, if you can picture it here, there'll be a cross tube that goes across here, and then an X, 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 X that braces up this tail section of the lower frame rail back here. And bump is going to be limited by the links running into that cross tube that goes across here. So I was thinking these link mounts might be a little bit too high. I might need to lower them, but I really won't know until I get everything sort of mocked up, get these tubes in here, and see where my measurements are at for belly height and what my actual bump or up travel will be. That's sort of a quick review of where I'm at. Got those done last weekend. I also put in these cross tubes. These cross tubes right here are what the upper link mounts are going to hang off of. These cross tubes are 188 wall. The link mounts themselves are made out of 3/16 plate with weld washers on them. Go get a few here. So these are the link mounts with the weld washers. I did these quite a while ago in anticipation of this build, and I just cleaned these up with some muriatic acid. I just need to hit them with a Scotch-Brite roll lock and clean them up a little bit before I mock them up. But yeah, so these are what mounts on this cross tube for the upper link mounts. 188 wall tubing, 3/16 link mount, and these will be gusseted. You could certainly get away with 1/4 inch on here and not do the weld washer if it was a crawler. But since this is a race car / pre-runner, weld washer, 3/16 plate instead of 1/4 inch, because ounces make pounds and we got to be cognizant of weight. 188 wall tubing here is what all the link mounts at the chassis side weld to. 188 wall on the subframe, 188 wall on this tubing for the upper link mounts. The other thing is these link mounts, as we get further on in the build process, if we get there, they're going to be gusseted either side, top and bottom. So you're going to add a lot more strength to them anyway. So that's sort of that. I'm going to get these upper link mounts in place, get these cross tubes in place, and build some mock-up links for this upper. Stand back and take a look at this tail section. I might modify this a little bit more, move that cut forward a little more. Then we're moving on to the front end. Oh, headers. Got some headers. Guess what? Off-the-shelf headers, and I think these puppies are going to work. A little bit tight over here on this side, passenger side, but they are going to work. The only thing about these headers is where the outlet is. It's pretty close to the dust cover flange on the transmission. So that dust cover flange is going to need to be trimmed away so that we can connect to these headers. I really like these headers because they already come with provisions for band clamps. They come with the band clamps. They come with the little stubs that attach here with the bungs already installed for your O2 sensors. So these headers are awesome. I'll make sure to put a link to these headers in the description down below. I'm really pleased with the work. All TIG welded together, polished stainless steel, really nice. So I also got the accessory drive from Eric at Radial Dynamics for the front end of the engine. Mounts the CBX pump down here, steering pump down here, and alternator up here. I don't know if I'll get to mocking that up in this episode, but that'll be coming up soon too. I need that in place before I start working on the links for the front end, because I want to make sure everything down here is happy with the clearances and the links and stuff. You get up to the front end where the engine is, and you got a lot of stuff going on, so you need to have as much mocked up and in place as you can when you're doing that. So yeah, I'll stop rambling here. I'll throw up the GoPro and we'll get some time lapse on what I'm doing today. It's been pretty steady. I think once a week I'm putting a video out. I don't know what happened, but I changed, I don't remember why, but I changed the day I put the video out to Tuesday. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Should I switch it back to Sunday? I don't know. You guys let me know. Comment down below and tell me what you think. I'll stop rambling. Here we go. All right, well, the power went out because of the storm we're having today, so I'm pretty much dead in the water in the shop. Can't really do a whole lot. So what I decided to do was talking to a buddy of mine, and we were talking about upper versus lower links length on a 4-link, and he suggested I make a cardboard model and see what happens. So I've never done this before. It seems like a really cool idea, and we will I'm just going to kind of go through this and show you what I'm doing. So on this side, if you think of this as a 4-link suspension, looking at it from the side view, this is your upper link, this is your lower link. These are the link mounts at the chassis side. These are the link mounts at the axle side. This is the axle, this is the chassis. We are assuming that the links are pretty much parallel, okay? And that the mounts are very close to being in line with each other on a vertical plane. So what I've done was I've got a couple options on my upper links in the rear. My lowers I know are about 43 inches. That's bolt to bolt, okay? I can do the uppers at 41.5, or I can do the uppers at 44.5. And I can adjust it some because there's adjustment in the heim. You can unscrew and screw in the heim. But what I did was I took those measurements and I divided them by 7. All right, so power's still out. So I'm messing around with this model still. So what I did was I took the upper and moved it outward toward the rear. This is a pivot point for the upper. This is more realistic of how the chassis is set up. This is the front of the chassis. The lower pivot point is more inboard toward the front. The upper is a little bit more outboard toward the rear. And then the axle is sort of opposite. The axle lower pivot point is more inboard toward the front, while the axle upper pivot point is more outboard or more centered on the axle center line or the axle tube center line. So I went ahead and made those changes. I put this ruler here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. See, if you look at the links, if you picture this as looking at the side profile of the chassis, this is sort of how the links are set up on the chassis, upper, lower. I'm probably beating a dead horse, you guys probably get it, but take this, put this here. Then here are the angles for sort of the upper. Now none of this is in scale, this is just sort of guesstimating, but I wanted to see what the pinion does. So here's the pinion, we'll call this bump. It's pointed up toward the transfer case output, which is right here. We'll call this ride height, still pointed up toward the transfer case. We'll call this full droop. Let's move this out of the way so you can kind of see without changing the angle, hopefully. The pinion is not diving at full droop, which is exactly what we want because this is going to be a low pinion in the rear. It's still pointing upward. I like it. So this gives me an idea of what I need for that upper link. Upper link being longer, good. Upper link being shorter, bad. Now maybe if this was a high pinion axle, it might be okay. There's no one right answer. There's no one set rule. It all depends on several different variables. And hey man, I'm no expert. I'm learning too. So here we go. All right, midday check-in. Even with the power outage, I still feel like I'm making pretty decent progress here. So what I've done is I've gotten these upper link mounts in place. I've got the mock-up upper links done. I'm pretty happy with the placement over here on the chassis side. The other thing that I've noticed, I know there's a lot of tubes going on here and it's pretty difficult to see, but the uppers and lowers are pretty darn parallel. So I think that's a good thing. I'm going to, at this point, what I did was I took some 2-inch 120 wall tubing and I'm laying it over these temporary links or these mock-up links, because these mock-up links are only 1 3/4 outside diameter. The real links for this would be 2-inch outside diameter. So I went ahead and put these, I cut a piece of 2-inch by 120 wall tubing in half and put it on here just for mock-up. And what I'm going to do is run the tube that goes across from this joint to this joint, goes across right there, to see how much up travel I have before I run into this cross tube. That's going to be my limitation for up travel. It would be either this tube right here or cross tubes that are going across the back of the tail brace or back of the tail to brace it up for rear collision and, you know, whatever. I don't think if I get this the axle to land in the middle of this bend, I don't think those upper link mounts are going to be a problem. My limitation for bump is going to be right there. And it kind of looks like, well, maybe, if I move this forward just a little bit, I'll have a little more clearance. That's the way it looks to me. I don't know. Right now, it looks like it's going to collide where it's at, just by my odometer here. So I'm going to get a tube to mock up and put across there. And then after I get that done, figure out where I am bump-wise, measurements, belly height in relation to full bump. Then I'll make a decision on this tail section and get that sort of finalized. All right? All right, so quick little update on this. I didn't mic up or anything, but what I decided to do was go ahead and tack this cross tube in. I'm going to leave this for now. If I've got my measurements correct, if this is full bump, we're just going to say this is full bump on a 39-inch BFG red label tire, which measures at about 38.5 with 20 pounds of pressure in it. The belly height would be right at 7.5 inches off the ground at full bump. So I think I'm going to leave this alone for now. I'm going to leave this tail section where it is until I get some solid measurements for a radiator, because the further I move this, there's a couple of things. The further I move this miter joint up, the more bump I'll gain, but the more congested this area in here is going to get, because the fuel cell right now, where I've got this set, where I've got this miter set, the fuel cell is going to be about 6.5 inches off of this bar, and the radiator is going to be mounted up here. So I'm just going to leave it because I need to get some solid dimensions on a radiator. Not only is the radiator going to be up here, but also the fill tube for the fuel cell, which goes up and out to the driver's side, I think. Driver's side or passenger side, but either way, I want to make sure that this in here doesn't get too congested. I'm going to move on to the front. I've got a blank housing over there that I need to chop up, so I need to measure this about 14 more times before I commit to chopping it up. Start working on doing the front links, and also I need to add the accessory drive that I bought for the engine here and get that power steering pump in place, so I kind of know what I'm working with there for clearances. All right, here we go. All right, well, I think we're gonna go ahead and close this one out. I did not get as much work done as I wanted to, of course, but that's kind of how things go. The power going out this morning for about an hour reset me a little bit, took a little bit of time, but we did get these upper links in place. I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out. I think right now where I'm at is about 7.5 inches. Belly would be at about 7.5 inches off the ground at full bump with a 39-inch BFG red label tire. And I only say that because that's the only tire I have here to measure. So if this were to be a 4800 car, of course, you can't run anything bigger than a 37-inch DOT tire, so that would put the belly height, lower at full bump. Like I said before, I'm gonna just wait on this back section until I figure out where my travel numbers are on this front end. This front end is going to be a challenge. We've got this accessory bracket set up. This is designed for a CBR or CBX type pump, but I don't have one of those. So I put in the TC pump for now, and I've got a 6-inch mock-up pulley that I cut out of 1/8-inch plywood on the laser machine. So that's there. It's already looking crowded to me. Inlet outlet on the pump is definitely not ideal, but again, this is a TC pump, this isn't a CBR pump, so we've got a lot of things going on here, especially if we're going to run a high pinion. These upper links have to shoot a window through here, come into here somewhere. This is going to be a challenge, but I'm up for it. I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I really want to stay in here and keep working. Also, cut the axle down. I measured 14 times and cut once. Yeah, so that's where we're at. Made some progress today, and we're going to keep on rolling. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. Go to the website and buy a hat or a t-shirt or a mug, a coffee mug. If you like these videos, that would really help support the website mainly. That'll be it. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.